I get asked quite a bit, how many games do you have in your collection? Are you a collector? And my answer is typically no, I'm not really too much of a collector. I do buy games for the NES in particular because I really love the system. And I've bought games that I had when I was a kid or that I rented, games that I really want to play again. I buy to play, I don't buy to stare at cartridges. So I have a very modest and humble NES collection. Not too many games here. I'm not trying to build a wall of plastic to stare at. I do have some games in here I need to get rid of. Slowly, I kind of bundle them up on eBay listings and stuff like that. Like I have some nonsense here that I've gotten from, Retro Game Treasure or from lots that were just too good to pass up on type of thing. So I probably need to narrow down this set of games, maybe 10, 15 games I need to get rid of. I do have a few duplicates here. I kind of did expand into Famicom disk system stuff, but not crazily so. I don't really have too much desire to buy anything else. For the NES, maybe a handful more games I'm looking for, but nothing crazy. Another question that I get quite a bit is, dude, what's your most rarest game? What's your most rarest game item? And I don't know how to necessarily answer that question because rarity, value, it's all kind of something that's not always tied in together. Because I do have some games like for the Neo Geo AES that are, they have kind of a higher cost, that kind of thing, but not necessarily, something huge to say, hey, this is rare type of things. Just Neo Geo games are freaking expensive, right? But I do have one thing for the NES that is pretty rare and interesting. I think it's a pretty unique item that not a lot of people are talking about or even know about. And it has to do with the Game Genie. So the Game Genie was released way back in like 1990 or so. And Nintendo actually really hated this. Nintendo sued these guys. They were like, this is wrong. They're cheating. I mean, there's a lot more to it. It had nothing really to do with the cheating aspect, I guess, with what the lawsuit was. But Nintendo tried suing them. Eventually they lost, and the Game Genie, was continued to be sold in the US. At that time when they were being sued, it was being sold in Canada. So it was still out there for a while, but eventually the case got dropped and, Game Genie was still being sold out there. Now, if you recall later on in life, 93 of the Nintendo's NES, the top loader came out. And magically, the top loader was incompatible with the Game Genie. Was that done on purpose? Who the heck knows? Most likely it was. But you could not fit a Game Genie into an NES top loader. Like, it couldn't make connection to where it would actually work. That was a bunch of nonsense. And it sucked. So the guys at the Game Genie company, Galoob, they put out a thing like, hey, if you got a brand new Nintendo, the top loader, the NES2, we have an adapter that you can get. Send away for it, and it is free. So I don't think too many people took them up on this because I haven't seen too many of these adapters floating around out there. If you check eBay, they rarely show up, and when they do, they're hundreds of dollars. I've seen in the past complete in box, which when they first were shipped to people, they were just in a plain little white box with I think a single page instruction sheet. I've seen those going for $800 to like $1,000. I think that's ridiculous. Shouldn't cost that much. Just 10 years ago, people were selling these for about $50, $60 just for the adapter without the box. Even with the box, probably around the same. But now you're looking at a couple $100, $300 in that price range just for this adapter. From what I've heard, this adapter is pretty damn rare. Not too many people have them. Maybe not a lot of people sent away for it. I did hear of somebody in the past, like, coming up on a box full of them from, like, maybe some kind of estate sale or auction or something from Galoob or something. I have no idea, but I heard of somebody coming up on a box of them. I don't know if those got out there in the circulation or not. I don't know if that story is necessarily true. But when you look at the history of this thing, it's pretty interesting to see. There's other ways. If you have a top loader and you want to use the Game Genie, you can use Famicom to NES and NES to Famicom adapter combined with the Game Genie to plug it into an NES top loader. But then it is so wonky, it's flopping around, flip flopping. Just doesn't seem very stable. Seems like something bad is going to happen, but it works. It works. But when you use this adapter, the Game Genie Adapter, if you want to search for these things, that's just what they're called, the NES Game Genie Adapter. And you plug it in, pop it into your Game Genie, pop in your NES game. It is very stable, very solid connection. They made sure this thing was going to fit nicely and you weren't going to have issues with connect. As long as your games were clean, as long as your system was clean, right? No big deal with that. As long as everything was clean, you weren't going to have any issues with the Game Genie Adapter in the top loader. Very stable connection. So much fun messing around with the Game Genie. I don't think people really care too much anymore for whatever reason, but there was just so many weird things you could do with the Game Genie. Even today, people are still finding weird little codes that you could put in there. But I remember as a kid, like, I didn't have a Game Genie at first. I remember borrowing one from a friend and just getting addicted. Like, I was addicted to it, just like typing in random numbers or letters or whatever and trying to figure things out. Because, like, he let me borrow it but didn't give me the book. Kind of sucked, so I just had to figure out codes. And back then, man, you were just like, you were stuck. Like, where do you find codes? You couldn't go on the internet. Who were you gonna? You had to get like codes from your friends and whatnot, or game magazines that actually would share the codes. Like I said, Nintendo sued them for selling the Game Genie, even though they did approach Nintendo like, hey, Nintendo seal of approval, official Nintendo product, and Nintendo was like, hell's no. Later on, when Sega, when they got their Game Genie, if you take a look at the Sega Game Genie, the Sega Genesis Game Genie, it has the Sega Genesis logo on it because Sega was just like, you know what? Hell yeah, we's all about this. Nintendo doesn't want nothing to do with this. This is an official licensed Sega Genesis product. I think that part of their history is really interesting as well. That Sega embraced it, Nintendo, they wanted nothing to do with it. But yeah, it was just so much fun being addicted to it. I remember borrowing it. The kid kept bugging for it back. Eventually gave it back to him. And then some other kid stole it from him. And then I remember getting recruited like, hey, it was just like stupid, crazy times. But this mofo stole this from me. Or it was like, I'm sure you had experiences like this. I've had experiences like this as well, even as an adult, which I don't let people borrow shit. But somebody would borrow an NES game from you. Like, especially like if you were in school. Okay, bring it back on Friday. And then bastard wouldn't bring it back on Friday. Oh, I forgot. Or whatever, whatever the excuse was. I'll bring it on Monday. And then Monday come, oh, I forgot. I'll bring it tomorrow. And every damn day, I'll bring it tomorrow. I'll bring it tomorrow. I'll bring it tomorrow. So it was like a similar thing like that for this kid. Some dude just like wouldn't give it back to him. And the dude lived like, because it was my neighbor that let him borrow it. The guy that my neighbor let borrow it after me, dude lived like 3 blocks away from us. So minutes away. And I guess he was just too scared to get it. And he just was like, hey man, can you help me out here? Can you infiltrate this dude's house and get my Game Genie back? I remember it was just a big to-do, but yeah, I have these fond, stupid-ass memories of the Game Genie. Still love messing around with it. The Game Genie, there was a couple different versions for the NES. There's the original gold one, and then there was the black one that came out a little later on. They both function identical. They're the same damn thing. So not really too big of a deal here. Nintendo did try to counteract this stuff by like later on with some of their games. They tried to put like measures in the games that had like checksums that would make it so the Game Genie didn't work. I believe the later revisions of the Game Genie, that's the only difference, is that they implemented something that bypassed that. But then there was a lot of codes and stuff like that would bypass that stuff anyway. But with the Game Genie, it was interesting, especially with the books that they put out. The later revisions, like the one book that I have here, it's like the 2nd edition, and then I have a 4th edition. And the 4th edition, I believe, was released in '94, was a lot fatter of a book, and it had a ton more games listed in it. and you could send away to get updates. They would send out little booklets here and there so you could keep up to date on these codes, since, you know, Nintendo wasn't publishing any Game Genie codes or anything like that. So you had to find some way of getting them. And I just found this stuff really interesting, being able to play these games with all these weird little codes and whatnot. A lot of damn fun. So I just wanted to share this because I've had a lot of people asking me about NES stuff in the past, about collections, about rarities. And I think, you know, is this thing really worth a couple $200 to $300? In my opinion, no. The only reason I have it is because I want to use it. I don't have it just to stare at. But I wanted to share this with you guys because I think it's an oddity. I think it's an interesting thing. But there you go. I'm not a huge NES collector. I'm a huge NES lover. I mean, not in a naughty way, but you know what I mean. I love the NES. I love a lot of games for it, and I just want to play it occasionally, have some fun, and mess around with that Game Genie and in that top loader. You know, that's the way to do it. So let me know what you guys think. Really do appreciate you guys. And with that said, I will catch y'all next time. Peace out. Bye-bye, and boom. Bye.